Midrange Sword is the deck we're checking out today, guys. I'm STM. Sorry if my voice is a bit quiet right now. We do have people sleeping, so you'll get a more energetic intro next time. But as for today's deck, we'll be running Midrange Sword. It's a tournament optimized deck from the past few Shadowverse Opens, and I'll show you a comparison photo in just a moment. Some of the chops I made to this deck is only one chromatic duo, which a lot of people are choosing between new decks right now in comparison with other cards that are just more powerful. I also personally would like to run a Zeta Crimson Lancer for the ignore ward effect on 10, or to just run into some of the bigger cards that are on the meta right now, or even the past meta, which was basically Green Glen Axeman, which was the 6-drop rush forest card. That's why I started putting that in, because it was a nice counter to that. Another card that I crafted 3 of recently was Lacia Sky Saber. You'll be seeing her today in a very big focus towards the end of our match, as well as Ivory Sword Dance, one of the newest additions to the mid-range sword deck. So without any further ado, let's take a comparison photo look, and then we'll get started. But before we get into today's video, this is a deck that was taken from the Shadowverse Open. This deck that was run very heavily by a lot of players within the past 2 weeks. Midrange Sword is a great counter right now to the heavy effects of last words on decks like Midrange Shadow, as they're calling it now, Service Shadow, or even Marking the Bloodcraft with specifically the Armored Bat, which is a great steal target, or even Florals from the regular Darkfist Blood Bat. So a few differences I make in my deck is that I run the 2-drop Usurpation card instead of the Holy Bear Knight. For more specifics, that card is the 7 Usurpation, and instead of Cyber Chimera, I chose to put in a few other cards, Zeta being one of them, and a few more Ivory Sword Dances instead of having the 2-drop removal spell as well, which Usurping Spine Blade was however it's pronounced, which recently was replaced in my deck from Sword Dance. So with that out of the way, let's get into today's video.
Prepare for defeat.
I was hoping for a better 1-drop, particularly the Storm 1/1. That is for some reason escaping my mind right now, so I went with the Rapier Master instead.
Gaze into the crystal.
What is happening here?
My mercy becometh justice.
So more often than not, you want to be the aggressor with mid-range sword, as I've seen in most of the tournaments and even heard from their commentary. But in this case, I did not feel like having that 2/1 still up and potentially have an easier trade with the 8th Warrior Wing, so I traded my Rapier Master. The reason I saved the other one was for the free evolve potential on turn 5 with a combo with the Lacia Sky Saber.
Finally, an end to this.
Let me weave you a lie.
I kinda wish I had the ability to steal this, but
Finally,
as you see here, I'm pretty sure I didn't draw it.
fear and despair are no match for me.
Reason I went with the Rapier Master over the Quick Blader is because if I try to wait past turn 5 for the Rapier Master, I'll end up using more play points for that combo than I want, since I can't decrease the cost of the Rapier Master to whatever I want it to be. So, say for example on turn 10 with the Quick Blader, I can play for exactly 5 play points to combo and still get off a Twilight Blade the same turn.
Let me weave you a lie.
You're not strong enough. See? Open wide.
Witness the power.
Typical idea for Florals is to try to trade it in before your opponent can steal it, so that you can get off the last words effect, because if you can't, more often than not, in the sword matchup, it means you will be devoid of healing later on in the game. Again, I hold on to the quick blader for the hopeful in-game combo with both laces that are currently in my hand.
Open wide.
Love for the sake of the world.
An act of taking.
Embrace me.
We had a second one right here, so I'm like, why not use the Servant of Usurpation to get our second combo in the free evolve here, which would hopefully give us a evolve point for Latham or even Dragonets if we're lucky enough to get them. And of course I give the defense to myself because this is a Dark Feast Bloodbath, as indicated by the cards played, because most Machina Bloods do not run Valkyrie because you're not trying to do self-damage to yourself. So the reason I healed there was to avoid potential Dark Feast death next turn.
Embrace me.
Again, I'm going for Goblet here, but as you see, I was not lucky enough to put.
Mortal or deity, I'll have them all. Let us mingle again.
Extra quick blader, so when I get more face damage, although looking back in hindsight now, I could have held back the 1-1 to avoid giving him an extra punch to the face, which could have served for an OTK. But luckily for us, perhaps he didn't have Dark Feast Bat yet, or maybe it wasn't active to a high enough kill count.
Shall we intertwine?
Reason I went for the Ivory Sword Dance first is to try to kill off the 4-2s before running in the trade with Vera. Because if I would have did that first, I wouldn't have had enough attack numbers to kill off the others. Although at this point I was pretty surprised that he did not have a Dark Feast Blood yet, because I could have sworn he punched himself at least about 13 times. But as turn 10, we've been holding the quick blader for this moment just long enough with an evolve point to grab the OTK here just perfectly almost, as you're about to see.
So you have chosen.
There's no time for you slugs.
Your strength is formidable.
So maybe in future videos you'll get more than one each time, but as for this very first one, keep in mind that we will be doing these more often. If it's at night, I might even cut the commentary, but going forward, we'll have more in-depth analysis. So stay tuned for more epic videos on what's going around the Shadowverse.